Dr. Matthew Pelkki. He's with us from Arkansas Forest Resource Center and Professional College of Forestry there and Agriculture and Natural Resources at the University of Arkansas at Monticello. And everybody knows that I'm very partial to UAM and to the Forestry Department. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Pelkki.
All right, make sure I'm on mute. Can folks nod if they can hear me? Okay, great.
We can hear you.
Great. So, Dr. Tian, could you start?
Yes.
Are you sharing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, most of you all know me, been around for about 20 years. Dr. Tian is relatively new. She's been here since about the August of 2019, I think. So she got started here and then she kind of got put in the closet with like the rest of us with COVID. And I'm really pleased because to have another economist, she's really, I've been able to turn over a lot of things to her, and watching the new guard come in, she's doing a great job and really expanding our capabilities in forest economics and policy here at UAM. So I'm just really pleased. So today's presentation, Nano, you want to slide over to the outline slide?
Yes. Okay.
So today's presentation, we're going to bookend this. I'm going to talk about some of the general economic indicators that are in our economy, just to kind of provide that baseline. Dr. Tian will take the middle two parts, wood products and timber prices. Hold on just a second. I'm dealing with a phone call. Sorry about that. And then I'll wrap up with an outlook for timber markets for 2021. So let's slide on to the next. There's an old slide of international paper at Pine Bluff. And I've got my phone is just ringing. Okay, there we go. Now I've got it muted. So what we saw with GDP growth, we saw that tremendous dip in COVID-19, what most economists would call a V-shaped recovery. We saw interest rates, the Fed responded with lower interest rates, the stimulus package and unemployment packages really pumped a lot of money into our consumer economy, which is 70% or even a little bit more than 70% now of the US economy. So we saw this very rapid rebound in GDP growth, which quite honestly was unexpected, but we are still only I believe we are only back to about 2017 levels in total GDP production. So we've still taken a hit. We've recovered about halfway from where we were pre-pandemic. Next slide. So consumer price index, we also saw a dip in the cost of living, and we saw some deflation in 2020, but again, a V-shaped recovery. Low interest rates were spurred on also by the actions of the Federal Reserve. So what we're looking at is, though, the money that was pushed into the consumer economy basically pushed prices up. We also saw a little bit of diminished supply nationally in terms of international trade fell off, also due to COVID restrictions. Let's slide on to the next one. Unemployment rate spiked, and as we can see, we're still not back to full unemployment. We're still running around 7.3% unemployment. Two-edged sword on this one. It would be really nice if that labor force was more available to, say, the logging and wood products sector, but largely exists in urban areas, in the service sector. And so we're not seeing, these aren't foresters these aren't people that have come back to forestry school and want to go to work for the division. Unfortunately, Joe, we're working on doing more in recruiting, and that's a big topic with us as we search for a new dean here at the college. And we hope to have that on board by the end of June, that person on board. And recruiting is going to be one of our top priorities, as we know we've got a lot more jobs available and we need to get more students in our program. But again, part of the slowdown in the recovery is still going to be getting those last 10 million people back at work. The actions that the federal government are going to take on housing protection, eviction protection are going to help keep this crisis from diving into where we've got 10 more million people homeless in this country. And whether or not that recovery package is targeted more towards unemployed people, which would be a little bit, I would favor it in terms of just reducing the amount of additional debt we're taking on, plus helping those that need most help. We'll just have to see, but rapid action is going to help kick this economy into gear in 2021. So Nana, let's switch over to housing starts, which, my gosh, were a surprise in 2020, spurred on by interest rates and stimulus package and some pent up demand. I never would have expected us to be above the trend line. To me, the thought of going out in COVID-19 and moving or having to look at homes in a time of infection just seemed very unusual, but the housing market really took off. And of course, it was not really slowed that much by this major increase in pine lumber and softwood lumber prices, which Dr. Tian will discuss, that we also saw. It was just really, really high demand. So we're seeing overall an economy, I think, that's poised for full recovery in 2021. The progression of 2 vaccines plus a third by the summer look very promising. Still some concerns about the variants, but everything that we're seeing says the existing vaccines, we get those widely distributed, we're going to get this pandemic under control here in this country, and hopefully globally by the end of 2022. So just as another caution, global markets are going to still be a little bit sluggish in 2021. I think largely because the global distribution of the vaccine is going to be a little slower. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Tian for wood products markets.
Hi, this is Dr. Tian, and thanks for Dr. Pelkki's introduction. And hopefully someday I can personally meeting you all. So for the wood products markets, the first thing I would like to show is the lumber price for the past 20 years. And from this figure, you can see that the overall trend is increasing. And also, if we just focus on 2020, we can see that there is a big increase for the lumber price. So the major contributors would be, the increasing demand and also the limited supply because of the COVID-19. And for the following slides, I mainly showed the producer price indicators for different wood products. So the first one is for the lumber. And from this figure, you can see that the PPI for lumber decreased in 2019 and also the early 2020. So this kind of trend just reflects the low costs for the labor and also the low costs for the wood fiber. This is the PPI for the pulp, paper, and the allied products. So basically, it followed a very similar trend. And following this kind of trend, we expect that the costs for the labor and also energy will rise slowly this year. This figure just shows the PPI for the maple and hardwood flooring. So again, from this figure, we can see that the PPI for the hardwood flooring decreased in 2019 and also the early 2020, but it has a very steady increase in the second half of 2020. So this kind of trend just reflects that there is a big increase in the demanding, and also it reflects that there is increased costs for the hardwood flooring. So that's the wood products markets. And for the following slides, I would like to introduce the stamp page price trends for the past 5 years for different forest products. So basically, you can see that for the stamp page price, I mainly showed the price for both Arkansas and also the Southwide states, as well as within Arkansas, we showed the price trends for the north part and also south part of Arkansas. So from the left finger, you can see that the average price for the pine saw timber in Arkansas is generally lower than the Southwide states. And both of them experienced a decline in 2020 because of the COVID-19. And then from the right finger, we can see that within Arkansas, the average price is generally higher in the south part of Arkansas than the north part of Arkansas. And a very similar trend followed for the pine pulpwood price. Again, the average price in Arkansas is generally lower than the Southwide states. So this reflects the oversupply and also limited demand for this market. And regionally within Arkansas, there is little difference between the north and the south part of Arkansas for the pine pulpwood price. And we also showed the price trends for the oak saw timber. So again, from the left finger, we can see that for oak saw timber, generally the average price in Arkansas is higher than the Southwide states, but they both experienced a decline in 2020 because of COVID-19. And then from the right finger, we see that there is no big difference for these markets between the north and the south part of Arkansas. And a very similar trend followed for the mixed hardwood saw timber price. Again, the average price in Arkansas is higher than the Southwide states, but within Arkansas, there is no big difference, but they both dropped substantially since 2019. And again, very similar trend followed for the hardwood pulpwood price, and they both, experienced a bigger decline since 2019 for the hardwood pulpwood price. And this kind of decline, just the major contributor is the growing stock of hardwood in Arkansas and also the Southwide states. So that's basically the price trends for different forest products for the past 5 years. And from here, I will just turn over to Dr. Pelkki, let him finish summarizing the economic outlook for 2021. Okay, Dr. Pelkki.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tian. So where are we going from here? Well, we are seeing Highland is expanding their wood pellet production, and both at Pine Bluff, the Port of Pine Bluff, and they have some investments. They're headed into the Asian market as well. So looking at another expansion of another 1 million to 1.5 million tons of pine. And some, as Grant told me, that was news to me. I was glad to hear that they're taking a little bit of hardwood pulp as well, and they're interested in that. So we're going to see an expansion there. I've also caught wind, though the Arkansas Economic Development Commission has somewhat sworn me to secrecy, so I could share a few things that I know, but then I'd have to kill all of you. So I'm not going to do that. No, just totally joking on that one. But ADEC and some of the regional economic development commissions are getting some interest from other bioenergy companies, looking also at the global export market. So I think that we're going to see, and then just honestly, given the change in administration, I think green energy is going to be a much bigger topic. And along with that green energy, we're seeing some really interesting developments. And Joe, this may keep your guys a little bit busier as well. We're seeing family forest carbon markets. The American Forest Foundation and the Nature Conservancy with their Family Forest Carbon Initiative, and they've got backing from Amazon, so they've got some big money behind it. And then Sylvia Tierra, a matter of fact, there's a webinar going on today. I learned a little bit about this at the SAF meeting in November, but they're going to be rolling out a family forest or a family farm carbon program in Arkansas that will go down to 1 acre of land and 1-year contracts. They're going to use a lot of remote sensing technology and some land. Both new programs are looking at some landscape level additivity rules compared to baseline, much different than the California Air Quality Board requirements, which are very stringent and looking at 100-year contracts. So this is going to open up, and we're largely because we're looking at a totally private market. Now, Amazon wants to buy into this market, and I think we're likely to see, with the return to the Paris Climate Accords, we're probably going to see a lot of other U.S. industries looking to buy carbon credits. And both Sylvia Tierra and the American Family Carbon Program are likely to undercut the prices of the California Air Quality Board substantially. So it's going to be cheaper to go into some of these new markets. And who knows, we may even see a renewal of the Chicago Climate Exchange in terms of allowing some of these private individuals or private corporations to sell their carbon credits on a more organized exchange rather than private exchanges. But we're going to see these carbon financial instruments become available to non-industrial or family forest landowners. We're also going to see growth in demand on engineered timbers. We've seen the Texas CLT in Magnolia has gotten certification for building panel construction. I've spoken with the folks at Structure Lab, and there is no planned delay. They're looking at doing some initial pre-production runs in the middle of this year and running into full production in 2021. And Walmart is backing that. So we're seeing some really interesting corporate collaborations with forestry on the consumer end in terms of greening the company's image. And so I think that's likely to continue and grow stronger. The traditional paper market is looking pretty stable. It's been declining at 2 to 5% every year. We're continuing to see that trend nationally continue, but there's an interest in global fiber. Domtar went that route a few years back, and now they moved away from so much finished paper product into selling more fluff pulp. And we're likely to see that trend continue as globally, folks are really, globally, people are looking at the South Wood basket as a place to get low-cost fiber. And then, while we're seeing these spot market prices and demands, particularly in the winter season, and if things stay a little, it's Joe is hoping for rain, Grant is hoping for dry. Hopefully we'll get enough rain to keep Joe happy, and not too much rain to keep Grant and the logging industry happy and move wood. For landowners that have wet weather loggable sites, this is always a good time of year, and their spot market is going to be strong. But as Joe mentioned, what are we about 11 to 12 million ton surplus in pine? Is that about right, Joe? He's nodding his head and saying that I've got, at least as far as we know, it's likely probably to be worse in 2020 when you run those figures. Or you could say better. This is, it's a supply demand kind of thing. I'd love to tell landowners we were going to jump back to $40 a ton saw timber prices and, $10 to $15 a ton pulpwood prices and chip and saw in the $25 a ton range. But I can't see it happening, not unless we get really big into building out of wood and replacing a lot of steel and concrete with wood and expanding paper packaging. All of these things are in the works. We're pushing hard for this, but right now we can't we don't have the industry and demand to harvest enough wood to keep up with the supply. And that's The good part is that's going to draw industry in. The supply demand equation is likely to help us out, but I don't see much change in stumpage prices in 2021. Hopefully we'll start to see a steady increase, at least in the amount that's going to be moved over the next 10 years. But be quite honest, I would be surprised if pine stumpage exceeded $30 a ton when I retire in 10 years. There's just so much of it growing out there. So for landowners, what we do is we focus on the biological growth, resiliency, and managing for climate change resilience or just drought tolerance. As Joe mentioned, we're statistically overdue for dry year. And I'm just afraid with dry year and a beetle infestation, Joe is going to be busier than he wants to be. I'm going to be answering a lot of questions in terms of why weren't we ready for this? And we are doing everything we can, and landowners are doing everything we can, but we need to promote strongly the idea of a healthy forest economy, and using wood in this country leads towards safer and more resilient forests, particularly in the South. It's a message that needs to get out to the public. When you're using wood, when you're building out of wood, that's going to help us out. So thank you, Nana, for switching to the last slide. She's reminded me to wrap up, because I'll always give you 50 cents worth of talking for a nickel. Joe's laughing. You're just about as bad at it as I am, Joe. So it's the pot calling the kettle black. But we have a full report available on our website. If you go to UAM website and you find the Arkansas Forest Resources Center, we actually have about a 20-page report with these graphs and some of the outlook information available. If you can copy down quick this website, and if not, you can always email me or Dr. Tian, and we will send you a PDF of the copy along with the link. So with that, I want to close and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.